Medusa, the woman whose beauty became her curse. What if the monster was once the victim? Imagine a woman so beautiful that men could not look away. Her hair was said to be magnificent, her face captivating, her presence impossible to ignore. Yet that beauty would become the beginning of one of the darkest transformations in Greek mythology. Her name was Medusa. For thousands of years, people have remembered her as a monster, a woman with snakes for hair, bronze-like scales in some later artistic traditions, and eyes capable of turning any man who met her gaze into stone. But before the snakes, before the petrifying eyes, before the severed head became a weapon, there was a woman. And this is where the story becomes far more disturbing. According to the version of the myth told by the Roman poet Ovid, Medusa was once a beautiful mortal woman associated with Athena's temple. Poseidon, the powerful god of the sea, desired her. What followed is described as a sexual assault inside Athena's sacred temple. And then came the punishment. But the punishment did not fall upon Poseidon. It fell upon Medusa. Athena transformed her hair into snakes and made her gaze deadly. Her beauty became a curse. Her identity became inseparable from the horror that had been forced upon her. Then the hunters came, men who had heard of the monster, warriors who wanted glory, heroes who wanted to prove themselves. And eventually, one young man succeeded. Perseus. He did not defeat Medusa by meeting her eyes. He used the reflection in a polished shield to approach her without looking directly at her face. Then, while she slept, he raised his sword. One strike. Medusa's head was severed from her body, and that should have been the end. But it wasn't. Her death was only the beginning of another transformation. Her head became a weapon, a trophy, a symbol, a tool used by heroes and gods. The woman disappeared completely. What remained was an object, a face, a weapon, a myth. And perhaps that is the most tragic part of Medusa's story. She was punished for what was done to her, hunted because of the curse imposed upon her, killed so another hero could become legendary, and then her own severed head was used to destroy others. So the real question is not simply, was Medusa a monster? The more uncomfortable question is, who turned Medusa into one? Part 1. The woman before the monster. To understand Medusa, we have to begin before the snakes. In the oldest surviving Greek traditions, Medusa is not necessarily presented as a beautiful, innocent woman who was transformed after an assault. The mythology surrounding her evolved over time, and different ancient sources tell different versions of her story. This matters, because the image most modern audiences recognize, the beautiful woman, the assault by Poseidon, the punishment by Athena, comes primarily from Ovid's Metamorphoses, written centuries after the earliest Greek traditions. But mythology is not a single book. It is a collection of stories that changed as generations retold them. And in one of those later versions, Medusa's tragedy begins with something that was supposed to represent beauty. She was extraordinarily beautiful, so beautiful that her appearance attracted attention wherever she went. And beauty in mythology is rarely harmless. The gods desire beautiful mortals. Kings become jealous of beautiful women. Heroes pursue beautiful women. And beauty can become a kind of dangerous power. Medusa's beauty attracted Poseidon. The sea god was among the most powerful figures in Greek mythology. He ruled the oceans, commanded storms, and was capable of devastating civilizations with earthquakes and floods. Medusa, by contrast, was mortal. She did not possess his divine power. She could not command armies. She could not challenge him on equal terms. And this imbalance is crucial, because when a god desires a mortal, the mortal does not necessarily possess the power to refuse. In Ovid's version, Poseidon sexually assaults Medusa within Athena's temple. The location makes the story even more significant. Athena was the goddess of wisdom, warfare, strategy, and crafts. Her temple represented her authority. Her sacred space was violated, and Medusa was the one who would pay the price. This is where the mythology takes a horrifying turn, because instead of seeing Medusa only as a victim, the story transforms her into the person who must be punished. Part 2. Athena's Curse. Imagine the psychological cruelty of what happens next. Medusa has already suffered violence. Then she loses her beauty. Not gradually, not naturally, instantaneously. The hair that once made her beautiful becomes a nest of venomous snakes. Her face becomes terrifying. Her eyes become deadly. Anyone who looks directly at her is transformed into stone. The woman who was once desired for her appearance becomes a creature nobody can safely look at. Beauty becomes horror. Desire becomes fear. Her greatest physical attribute is inverted. And this transformation can be interpreted as more than a supernatural punishment. It is symbolic. Medusa's beauty once attracted men. After Athena's curse, her face repels them. But there is an even deeper irony. Her eyes become the source of her power. People who gaze upon her die. In other words, the very act of looking at Medusa becomes dangerous. Part 3. From Woman to Monster. This is where Medusa's humanity begins disappearing from the story. The mythology no longer asks, who was she? What did she want? What did she fear? Did she have dreams? Did she have a family? Did she remember the woman she once was? Instead, the world asks a different question. How can she be killed? This is one of the most powerful elements of Medusa's myth. Once society labels someone a monster, curiosity about their humanity disappears. The monster becomes a problem, and problems must be solved. Medusa retreats to a remote place. She is no longer part of ordinary human society. She cannot safely interact with anyone. She cannot be approached. She cannot be looked at. Her curse isolates her from the world. And yet warriors continue to hear about her. Stories spread. A woman with snakes for hair. A creature whose eyes kill. A monster hiding at the edge of civilization. The more frightening the story becomes, the more valuable her death becomes. Because killing a monster creates a hero. And this is where Perseus enters the story. Part 4. The Hunters Come. Medusa did not become famous because she wanted fame. She became famous because other people wanted something from her. Some wanted her beauty. Some wanted her. Some feared her. And eventually, some wanted her head. Perseus was given a seemingly impossible mission. Bring back the head of Medusa. For most warriors, this would have been a suicide mission. One mistake, one direct glance, 1 second of carelessness, and the warrior would become stone. But Perseus had something Medusa's previous pursuers did not have. Divine assistance. Athena helped him. Hermes helped him. Perseus received extraordinary equipment, including a reflective shield. The shield was not merely armor. It was the key to defeating Medusa. And here lies one of the most fascinating details of the story. Perseus could not look at Medusa directly, so he looked at her indirectly. He watched her reflection. Part 5. The Night of the Kill. Now imagine the scene. Medusa is asleep. The snakes in her hair move quietly. Her breathing is slow. Around her are the remains of a life spent in exile. And somewhere nearby, Perseus approaches. He cannot look at her, not even for a moment. His shield reflects the world before him. He sees Medusa through metal. Not directly. Never directly. He moves closer. One step, then another. The tension rises. If the shield's angle changes, he could look directly into her eyes. If Medusa wakes, he could die. If his hand slips, his mission could end instantly. And then he raises his sword. For a moment, the hunter and the hunted are frozen in time. Medusa does not know what is coming. She is asleep. She cannot defend herself. She cannot understand that the man approaching her is about to end her life. Then, the blade falls. One strike. Medusa's head is severed from her body. The monster is dead. The hero has won. But mythology immediately delivers another shock. Because even in death, Medusa does not become free. Part 6. The Blood of Medusa. When Medusa's head is removed, something extraordinary happens. From her blood emerge the offspring associated with Poseidon, Pegasus, the winged horse, and Chrysaor, depending on the mythological tradition. This detail creates a disturbing connection. The god whose encounter with Medusa helped define her tragedy is also connected to what emerges from her death. Even her blood carries the legacy of Poseidon. Her body becomes mythology. Her death produces wonders. Her suffering produces legendary creatures. And yet Medusa herself receives no restoration. Part 7. The Head That Never Stopped Killing. This is perhaps the darkest stage of Medusa's transformation. During her life, Medusa was a woman. Then she became a monster. After Perseus killed her, she became something even less human. She became a weapon. Perseus carries her severed head. The final irony. There is one final irony that makes Medusa's story unforgettable. She was once desired because men thought she was beautiful. Then she became feared because men thought she was monstrous. Then she was hunted because men wanted to prove their courage. Then she was killed. Then her head was used as a weapon. Then her image was placed upon a divine shield. And thousands of years later, people are still looking at her. Artists keep painting her. Statues keep displaying her. Stories keep retelling her. Audiences keep staring at her face. But unlike the warriors in the myth, we do not turn to stone. Instead, we ask questions. Who was she? What happened to her? Why was she punished? Why did she become a monster? Why did the hero have to kill her? And perhaps most importantly, what if the monster was never born a monster? Climax, the last look. Imagine the final seconds again. Medusa is asleep. Perseus stands above her. His shield reflects her face. The snakes move slowly through her hair. The woman who once possessed extraordinary beauty is now trapped inside the body of the monster everyone fears. Perseus raises his sword. He does not look directly at her. He cannot, because even now, even in the final moment of her life, her gaze remains powerful. The sword falls. Her head separates from her body. Silence. The hero has won. But look closer. The monster has disappeared. And what remains? Not justice. Not redemption. Not freedom. Only a head. A trophy. A weapon. A symbol. Her life has been reduced to an object that other people can carry. And perhaps that is the most haunting ending of all. Medusa does not simply die. She loses ownership of her story. Conclusion: monster, victim, or something more. Medusa's story has survived for thousands of years because it refuses to provide a comfortable answer. Was she a monster? Yes, in the mythology. Was she a victim? In Ovid's version, she can certainly be understood that way. Was Athena cruel? Perhaps. Was Perseus a hero? Within the traditional heroic framework, absolutely. But myths become more powerful when we stop asking only who was right and who was wrong. Medusa's story is ultimately about transformation, about how one event can redefine an entire life, about how beauty can become a burden, about how victims can become feared, about how heroes can be celebrated without us asking what their victories cost someone else. And perhaps that is why Medusa continues to stare back at us after more than 2,000 years. Not because she wants us to be afraid, but because she forces us to look at something we would rather avoid. The difference between a monster and the person who is turned into one. The next time you see Medusa's face, don't look only at the snakes. Look at the woman beneath them. Because perhaps the greatest tragedy of Medusa was never that she became a monster. Perhaps it was that, after everything happened to her, the world forgot that she had ever been human. And that leaves us with one final question. If Medusa had been given a choice, would she have ever chosen to become the monster everyone remembers? Or was the monster simply the only identity the world was willing to give her? Maybe Perseus killed Medusa, but perhaps the world had already killed Medusa long before his sword ever reached her. And maybe that is why her story still refuses to die. Because sometimes the most terrifying monsters are not born in darkness. Sometimes they are created by it.